have nowhere left to turn. Now I'm a stranger, it's a headline that I have earned. I've never been the one to withhold my words. If I could take the blows, I'd welcome the hurt. See the truth in my eyes, it's falling apart without you. Would you give me your love if I could take it back? I'll take it back. How do I show you that I found the words to say? I wouldn't blame you if what you do is walk away, walk away. My only redemption is the fire never died. I don't have to tell you, I can see it in your eyes. And chasing my demons down and conquered my fears. I'm somebody stronger now, not leaving you here. How do I show you that I found the words to say? I wouldn't blame you if what you do
stone, the distant call of home. So far yet always with us, inside our hearts and bones. No breath or sphere or white mountains sheer can quell the call of home. There is no heart that is quite as bright as a flame that flickers free. No many roads lay outside of my door. There is but one that calls to me. So far, yet always with us, inside our hearts and bones. So soft the call.
Were you lying to yourself? I can tell you're not the same. They'll find you if you stay. Will you hold back, or will you give yourself away? The day you came home, so sure I lost you. The way you're walking right at me, that thing that haunts you, it's not on your back. Did you decide that you were free? I don't know what to say. You got to give it up to live this way. I can tell your heart is truly changed. Oh, in a second breath, I say your name and I see the light behind your eyes again. I can see your heart is truly changed. Oh, in a second breath, I say your name and I see the light behind your eyes again. I can tell you, I can tell you, I can tell your heart is true, your heart is truly changed. Now your eyes are shining now, and the world won't look the same. I know. For me, time to turn it all around. Now you do not own the blame. The day you came home, so sure I lost you. The way you're walking right at me, that thing that haunts you, it's not on your back. Did you decide that you were free? I can tell your heart is truly changed. Oh, in a second breath, I say your name and I see the light behind your eyes again. I can see your heart is truly changed. Oh, in a second breath, I say your name and I see the light behind your eyes again. I can tell you, I can tell you, I can tell your heart is true, your heart is truly changed. I can tell you, I can tell you, I can tell your heart is true, your heart is truly changed. I've been sitting trying to come up with words to say. It's all in slow motion, I let go, you're slipping away. Going out the window, are you going out the window? Once I woke up, I knew we'd go another day. No one in this world gonna ever take you away. Was it all for nothing? No. Was it all for nothing? No. I can tell your heart is truly changed. Oh, in a second breath, I say your name and I see the light behind your eyes again. I can see your heart is truly changed. Oh, in a second breath, I say your name and I see the light behind your eyes again. I can tell you, I can tell you, I can tell your heart is true, your heart is truly changed.
Hiya, this is Kitten Features, and you're listening to ShowX Live with Ken in a student accommodation all the way in Scotland. Wait, that was years ago. You're listening to ShowX Live with your favorite Scotsman Ken, currently residing in the US of A, and Wayne, mostly from Colorado, but spending way too much time in the Howling Abyss instead of Summoner's Rift. Enjoy the show!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. How's it going today? You're listening live at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT on this Sunday, the 23rd of August, 2020. Everybody, welcome to the show. Hey, Ken. Hey, Todd. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, pretty good. How about you, Todd? How you doing?
No complaints at all, sir. No,
Hey.
none at all. And in
Awesome.
fact, skull.
Very nice. And if you didn't catch it on the show, we did wish Mistress of Giggles a very happy birthday for last week. So hopefully you can pass that on to her as we enjoy that you guys got to go celebrate. So thank you for that. Also today, to catch up on things, looks like we don't have any cleanup email to start the show today. So no problems there. We'll jump right into things because we are going to be talking a bit about some fights and what's been going on recently in the news. Specifically, as we have been seeing for hopefully those out there watching, there is quite a brawl going on today right now between Apple as a mobile distribution service for software and Epic through specifically their Fortnite game that they distribute on the platform. And they are having a 1-2 at it from a legal standpoint. So we'll be getting into that today. But to start things off today, let's real quick catch-ups for anybody, and then we're going to have Ken give us some updates on what's been going on with Factorio. So to get things started, Todd, what have you been up to in the last week or so that's been fun and interesting before we get into our main subjects?
Another week, another Europa Universalis 4 campaign.
You've been for those who are interested, Todd's been putting these like updates on Facebook that he doesn't actually mention he's playing a game in, and he just says like, "This is my version of history," and then it's something to do with the Third Reich, and you're like, "Wait a minute, what?"
Yeah.
Then for me it clicks like, "Oh, he's playing the game again, right?"
Yep.
But I wonder how many
Yeah,
people
well,
are like
let's-
friends on
yeah,
Facebook who have no context.
We'll go through the chronology of events for this week. So the first thing I posted, so I started start at the beginning. In the 1.30 Austria patch with the Emperor DLC, one of the things that they did is they took pre 1.30 Pomerania, split it into principalities.
Okay.
One's called Wolgast and the other one is called Stettin. Wolgast, Stettin, and Brandenburg are all principalities inside the Holy Roman Empire that are roughly, so they're each ways that you can form Prussia. And then from forming Prussia, you can go on to unify and form Germany. Okay. So the chronology of events is I finally did my first German Empire playthrough of Europa Universalis 4, where I started as Wolgast, which is right on the Baltic Sea in the northern part of modern-day Germany, and conquered my way into forming Pomerania, conquered my way into forming Prussia, conquered my way into forming Germany, and then I posted a thing to Facebook that shows the achievement called an early Reich, in which you have to form Germany. And the only thing that I said in the comment was, because it's important to have goals.
Oh no! And did you have any like angry relatives or anything?
No, it's I got a laughing face from Pusar, and I got a huggy heart emote from Sleaze Queen,
Nice.
one of our boys from Colorado. So then what happens when you get into the 18th century is what they call the Age of Revolutions happens. So the revolution is very likely to happen in France because that's what happened historically. Now, obviously, I had formed Germany at that point, and if your country does not start, quote, the revolution, end quote, you get a casus belli on the country that the revolution did start in order to crush the revolution.
Now, I know what Cassius Belli is, but could you explain the concept for those who
Sure,
are not?
casus belli means reason for war, and in the game mechanics, you have to have a reason for war to declare war on another country. Otherwise, you take huge stability penalties to your country. So you can declare war on anybody at any time, but before like 1650 or 1670, it's usually not in your best interest to do so. So one of the things that you do, again, to mimic things that happened in medieval times, you have to fabricate a claim on a province in another country and then use that fabricated claim as your reason to go to war.
Huh,
There
okay.
are others, but that's the most common.
Basically,
So,
you can seed your
what's the
own
ver-
thing of dissent or something, and then be like, "Ha I know how we're going to fight people."
No, it's literally a piece of paper that says, no, actually, this is our family's historical land, so we're going to take it.
Gotcha.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are lots of other casus bellis, but that one's the most common. So during the revolution, you get a casus belli to crush the revolution. So because the revolution happened in France, I declared war on France to crush the revolution, and I did. I was fortunate enough when I signed the peace to crush the revolution, I managed to get a screen cap of what it says when you actually sign a peace from the war that way. And essentially, the thing says, a herald from revolutionary France. They tell us of the fall of the revolution. The forces of Germany have utterly vanquished the French Revolutionary Army. The idealists as idealists are rounded up mercilessly, the silent majority has turned to dusting off their old monarchist symbols.
Oh my.
Okay, so that's what it is. I grabbed a screen cap of that window, posted it, and the caption that went along with it is my personal reimagining of the end of Les Mis. It's important to have goals.
Oh.
Oh no.
I mean, and so to me, it's just silly, right? So imagine the kids in Les Mis, and they have all their barricades, and they put all this wood in the middle of the street, right? And it's not the French army that shows up; it's a battle-hardened Prussian German army wearing black with the metal helmets with the spikes in the middle. Like, and they roll up on those kids. Like, it wasn't pretty in Les Mis. This would be even less pretty. So anyway, yeah, that's been my week.
Nice.
Reimagining European history, and the thing is, it's a game where I don't think any reimagining of European history is going to be good, right? I think it's already a bloody horrible thing. I don't think there's such a thing as a nice version of European history.
There could be the version where nobody declares war on anybody ever.
What?
But that is not likely.
But without declaring war, you also allow atrocities to go ahead, right? I mean, like, I don't know if in this video game, mind you.
Yes, I mean, strictly speaking, that would be true. But I mean, you could imagine the world where none of the European powers colonize North and South America or Africa or the Southeast Asia, and the Ming Dynasty doesn't fall apart, and the Holy Roman Empire just gets along with itself, and like the Pope's not a jerk, and like it's all fine. The Ottomans decide to not sack Constantinople, so the Byzantine Empire just gets to be there, weak as it is. It's not very interesting, but you could imagine that world, I suppose.
I think there's, if anything, a saner world, one where we think, you know what, maybe we shouldn't sacrifice tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of people just for one thing. Let's talk about it instead. Let's have tea
Talk
over
things
it.
out. What?
Yeah, there you go. There you
British. I'd say it's the British way, but it's really not.
go.
No. Oh, that's
So for
ridiculous.
anybody who's listening to this, who's remotely interested in Europa Universalis 4, doing the formation of Prussia into the formation of Germany is worth it. The Prussian troops are lovingly referred to as Space Marines by the EU4 community because they just win. And I don't. It's hard to describe it without getting really deep into the mechanics. But I've beaten Ottoman stacks in the early 1700s where I'm at a 3-to-1 disadvantage, and they still win my troops. So it's it's pretty silly, really. And these troops are better than pretty much any troops in the world, especially like troops outside of Western Europe. So Polish, Lithuanian, Russian, and by the time you get to the Ottomans, the Mamelukes, the Timurids, the Middle East and Persia and India, like it's just not even. It's no contest. Like it's stomping a mud hole and walking it dry. Really. So it's absolutely worth doing. So yeah, it's been good fun for sure.
Nice.
So have you ever been tempted by the other Paradox type games? So like Stellaris, have you actually given it much time in the past?
I played some Imperator Rome, and while I was waiting for the 1.30 patch, because I'd pretty much done everything I wanted to do in 1.29, knowing that 1.30 was going to revamp all of Europe, I did download Hearts of Iron 4 and play a handful of 3/4 campaigns in Hearts of Iron 4. So I've played Imperator Rome, Europa Universalis, and Hearts of Iron. Crusader Kings 3, I think, is out now.
I think I've seen lots of advertisements for it. I believe so.
Yeah.
Is it on the Epic Store? I seem to remember something about that.
Is it?
I have no idea. I might be making that up. But...
Crusader Kings 3, available on Steam as
cool.
we speak. Release date 1st September 2020. So it has not been released yet on Steam.
Okay.
Very soon, though.
Yep.
Are you going to be getting it?
I don't know, but likely.
Cool.
I have not played any Crusader Kings 2, but I did see it. Again, it's just a different... you have to be a little bit careful with these games because they're not made by the same development team, obviously. So the mechanics between Imperator and Europa Universalis and Hearts of Iron are each a little bit different. Like
I did not know that. Okay.
It's a Paradox game, so they're basically the same, but they're each a little bit different in their own thing. It's Hearts of Iron is not necessarily to me as good as Europa, but there are people who play Hearts of Iron on the regular, like on Twitch and stuff, who swear by it, who are fascinated by World War II history and whatnot, and so they play all kinds of they're playing all kinds of campaigns and whatnot inside Hearts of Iron. So for me, it was fun enough. It was fun doing a communist Poland, and standing up against the Nazis with the Russians at my back, rather than the Russians and the Nazis signing the something Ribbentrop Pact, and thus having them basically carving up Poland between the two of them. Reforming the Poland-Lithuanian Commonwealth as a communist country. So that stuff is kind of funny, but it's not I didn't get nearly the mileage out of going through those campaigns as I have with Europa. Which is not to say I won't with Crusader Kings. You have to just know going in that Crusader Kings will not be the same as Europa.
That makes sense. And I imagine that's going to be very much the same story with Stellaris. It is not going to be like the other ones for obvious reasons.
Sure.
Although I think you can actually there's I think it was you that told me this actually, Todd. There's some people who'd like to do the playthrough from like the very first era in history and maybe like Civ or something, and they carry it across all the games.
So there are utilities out there that will let you convert save files from one Paradox game to another.
That's mad.
They are by no means perfect, and so what you can do is you can start in Crusader Kings, play through till about 1400, go into Europa, play that until 1821, move that save file over to Victoria. Victoria runs until the that period runs until almost World War II. Move it to Hearts of Iron, play through Hearts of Iron, and then move it to Stellaris. And so you end up with this. Somebody did it and had by the time they got to Stellaris, had this ridiculous Sweden. It was the Sweden planet, and started.
I don't know why I find that funny.
Conquering parts of the galaxies as a Sweden planet.
I don't know why I find that so amusing, but just the idea of
I love the idea of Swedes in like space Viking ships, like raiding and pillaging. Yeah, I love that idea. That is fantastic. Like, we have made it into space. Time to go back to our roots.
IKEA, but now delivers universal white.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Build your own spaceship. Okay. Sorry, I was get fascinated with when you talk about your gaming experience, because it's just so different to the kind of games I play. So it's just always fascinating to hear like how you enjoy the game rather than what the game is.
Sure.
Absolutely. Sure. Well, and along those lines, sir.
It's super fun. That's all I can tell you. I love making up stories in my head about why I have a distinctly Polish German empire, and like there are a whole bunch of prerequisites for forming Germany in the first place, and you do have to take a bunch of German provinces, but I conquered a bunch of Poland before I started taking all those provinces in Germany, so I had this sort of U-shaped country. Where Bohemia was sort of in the gap of the U, because I hadn't attacked them at all, because they were my ally for a bunch of the early conquests that I was doing. So I just left them alone. So I ended up with this weird U-shaped country, and then we ended up. What happened? Oh yeah, Bohemia and I ended up sharing a royal bloodline, and then I got their land for free.
Nice.
Because I essentially inherited Bohemia. Just surprise. And that's and it went on from there. And it's like, oh look, free land.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah.
Good times. So much fun.
That's very cool.
Fun.
So, no, appreciate it. Like I said, I always love to hear what we are all playing it into each week, because I think the fans love to hear kind of what it is we're spending our time doing. So along as I can, what have you been doing in the last week or so, kind of keeping yourself entertained? I know partly for those watching, they might see that there's a different perspective on you today.
Oh, yeah, so I moved apartment. That was a whole thing. You'll recall last week that I had some troubles with the glue on the wall behind me. I ended up spending 10 hours I attached a brush to a drill.
Oh, gosh.
I then covered it in WD. I covered the wall in WD-40, which helped dissolve all the gunk. And then I used this brush on the drill, and it got lots of it off. There was still some residue, but we haven't heard anything from the landlords yet, so I think they're okay with it. Although if they touch the wall, it will feel slightly sticky, no matter where they touch. So even though I had all that weird like bits of foam has now been removed, it still is a weird residue, which is never a good thing.
Yeah, don't mind the sticky walls in this room, let alone shine a black light on it. We'll be fine.
For sure. Like I know they blacklight the carpets. I watched them do it in this new apartment. I didn't see them do the walls. I really hope they don't, because they'll be like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, what did you guys do in this room?
That was for my. That's where my poster of the Backstreet Boys were.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Who's to say that college professors can't have a porn room?
Oh man, you don't know if my students are watching this, man.
The challenge of swings, but
hypothetically, we're talking hypothetically.
Yeah.
Purely hypothetically.
It's amazing how things can just sometimes get all over the place. It's hard to say how or why. No, so
yeah, we moved out. Moving on quickly.
My fault, Doctor. I forgot.
Moving on quickly. So now I'm officially a basement dweller. I live in a basement. I've never done this before, because in Scotland, basements were super, super rare, right? Like you'll see new apartment buildings with a basement, but usually the basement's for storage or maybe like power or something. But it's very, very rare to see basement apartments in Scotland. Largely because there's just super old buildings, and most people live in houses and not apartments.
You stole my thunder, because the follow-up question is that because there's a very shallow water table because you're on an island? Are you on an island, or is it because the buildings are all of a vintage that they just didn't make basements?
A bit of both. I mean, old Victorian houses and the likes do have basements, but a large problem is flooding. So unless you already live on a hill, Scotland is a very wet country, right? It's constantly raining. So, and we even if you're like, I've been in multiple areas around Scotland, lived across Scotland, and I saw flooding in every area. It's pretty common. So yeah, it's weird to live in a basement. I've got a tiny little window now. And when I look outside, I see grass, like at the level that I look at. That's weird. It's very strange to me. However, I've noticed that I don't even turn the AC on here at all. It's been beautifully cool, just because we're in a basement, and that's really nice. However, I'm a bit concerned about winter now, because I know when it hits minus 25 C or 0 F or something, that I'm going to have to actually think about turning on the heat for once.
And now your periodic lecture in geology by Octale.
Oh,
believe it or not,
geography today, guys.
The Earth temperature is not going to affect the temperature in your place all that much unless you have really bad windows. And the reason why is because you're essentially surrounded by Earth. Like that Earth stays at around 48 to 56 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, ground freeze doesn't tend to go that deep. It takes a lot for the ground to freeze a certain level below.
Yeah. So the kind of permafrost where the frost layer is going to be multiple feet down is far north of where you are. So even if the ground freezes, it's a very superficial type of freeze, so it doesn't penetrate that deep. What that means for you is, yes, it's going to be cool, but it's not going to be bitterly cold necessarily. Again, unless you have bad windows, and in which case, 0 degree air or below zero
still
air
come in.
It might end up getting into your house, and in which case, yeah, it's going to be damn cold in those places.
I think they're double glazed, so I think that'll all be fine.
Yeah, so I mean, you are going to have to run your heater, yes, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as you think it's going to be.
Cool.
That has been your periodic geography lecture with Octale.
Nice.
Today is such an educational show.
Well,
I'm loving it.
To add on to that, I finally actually looked up as you were talking about that, because it's bugged me forever, as to why certain areas in certain countries and other places do or don't have basements. And the primary thing in looking through a couple of pages real quick, the answer was it all comes down to soil. And essentially it's either places that either, like you said, Todd, have high water tables, or do not have solid, easy to maintain soil, things that are sometimes too little, too much clay, things like that the structure of the soil will not maintain, holding a structure underneath, are areas where you will likely not have basements, where areas that have a sturdier soil base, you'll see more often basements built, and things like that. But I've always been curious because for me, I love basements because in states I've lived that have them, it's always considered it's not space that you consider in the square footage of the house when you value one. And so it's almost like free bonus space by having a basement.
That's weird.
Yep.
It's
Isn't that
similar.
weird?
Well, it's similar to garages.
Unless
In many
finished.
cases,
Like it depends.
Yeah.
It's one of those. This is one of the beautiful things about this is your American government and politics lecture. This is one of those things that changes state to state. So not every state is the same. In some states, if you finish you finish part of your basement, that the finished part of your basement counts in the square footage of the house, and that's great for the value, but you also get taxed on it.
yep.
So, but every state is different, and
Yes,
so
thus-
I'd love to make a blanket statement about America that way, but can't.
No, the U.S. is too big, and therefore we separate all laws and states separately. So no, but yeah, I was always curious to look that up and finally did because I love having my basement as an unfinished space that gives me a whole slew of options from everything from hosting my Game Fest to having a studio for shooting photography and places to print, things like that. Anyhow, so good job on the move, Ken. I like that you are in a much more lit environment right now. I'll be curious to see how you finish sorting it all out now that you're in your new space. That pretty much occupy the majority of the week?
Yeah, pretty much. In terms of gaming, we picked up a couple things on PlayStation that I have been sorely tempted to spend time on, which I just don't have. Work's a bit crazy just now, so I've been pretty chill with gaming. But I did give a lot of time yesterday to the latest Mass Effect Andromeda. All I heard about, and I kind of hate this fact. All that I heard about that game was, oh, look at the graphics; they all look like clowns. And I had a quick look at a couple of articles that did that, and I guess subconsciously I just sort of thought, yeah, they do kind of look stupid. Looks like they didn't put much effort into this game, and then I never considered it again for some reason. And I feel like that was very prejudgmental of me because I don't know anything else about the game, and I've loved the series. 1, 2, and 3 were all great for different aspects, and then I'm not going to say they got better or worse over time, but they all had their own strengths. And yeah, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed the concept of Mass Effect. I enjoyed the space exploration. I enjoyed the RPG system. I enjoyed the mix of fantasy with sci-fi in there. I thought it was great. I love the ethics in the games. So yeah, I decided to get it because it was on sale down to my PlayStation is still European. It still thinks in pounds. So it was £8.
Okay.
For some reason, it refuses to believe we're in America, which is fine, whatever. So yeah, I picked it up and downloaded it, and I put it 2 or 3 hours into it yesterday, and that was good. It feels just like an old Mass Effect game, maybe a bit more fluid and a bit more dynamic than before. I feel like Mass Effects generally feel, it's 3D in the sense that you can go forward, back, left, and right, but it doesn't really have much of an up-down dimension. I feel like Andromeda does. There's a lot more jetpacks and stuff that can help you get around, which actually feels a lot more fluid in combat as well, which is quite nice.
Oh, interesting.
And it feels like rather than being in an established universe where you're a small fry that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, Andromeda is literally you're on a cryogenic ship that goes to the Andromeda Galaxy, where no man has set foot before, right? So in theory, you're supposed to be like you're a pathfinder. You're one of the first people there, and of course, there's inevitably bad guys there who are there first. You got to beat up, but it's nice because it doesn't feel like, oh well, at least we have an army. No, you have yourself, and that's it's a fresh perspective on Mass Effect. And so far, with a couple hours in, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And then I said to Kitten last night, I was like, I think I want to go play Mass Effect for an hour or two. She looked at me and said, "Is that wise? You've been stressing about work all week, and you're going to go and play games instead of getting to bed in a good time." And I was like, "You're right, damn it." Because otherwise I would have been up late and I would have not gotten anything done today and so on. So it's good. It's a good enough game so far to make me want to be irresponsible.
Nice. No, it's I continue to want to find a time to divert other attention to Mass Effect because I've never played any of the games really. I've put maybe 2 hours into the first game And I have a lot of friends around me who really, really enjoy the entire series for the various reasons. And just like, that is...
Yeah, the Mistress of Giggles plays them, and alongside Dragon Age. She likes Dragon Age more, but she has played.
Good.
She has played and enjoyed Mass Effect 2. So yeah, there. I don't understand why, but I can't get into them. But she really likes them, and I would expect that you would too, Wayne.
Yeah, no, I think I would. The little bit I did, I was like, wow, I'm actually what I'm going to hold off on because I unfortunately own essentially the first two, I think, maybe the first three Mass Effects. But I started playing a little bit. I was like, all right, cool. And I just never really sat down with it. Much like how it happened to me with some of the BioShock series. The remastered version of Mass Effect has been announced and is supposed to be coming out in October. And
wow, I didn't know that.
I may kind of default and hold off and wait until those hit because I believe they're talking about releasing them as a package deal. And if that's the case, if they do like a one-time purchase at a normal price that is all of the Mass Effects remastered, I'd be pretty down to jump on that and use that as the thing of, I've never really played these, let me jump in as my first experience being with this updated graphics, cleaner interface, things like that.
Yeah. So I don't want to turn this into a debate on this show. Maybe we could tackle it at a future point. But slippery slope. I'm not sure how I feel about supporting remasters.
Oh,
I'm not talking about, you know, like the Bethesda methodology of Skyrim, where you just wait and release it on every platform and then make a new version of it to sell it again with the VR version, as well as the updated with the 64-bit code version, as well as the, you know, Switch version. Oh, wait, PS5 and Xbox are coming out. Guess what?
The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim coming to your TI-92 graphing calculator.
Exactly.
Well, to be fair, they did also make fun of themselves when they did the Amazon Alexa version of it, which was quite funny.
Hey, but that one legit works.
To be fair, they haven't put it on mobile phones yet, right?
That's a good point. I would play the show that actually. If we got that, I would definitely play that.
Stop, Ken. Don't say it.
They haven't pulled the Blizzard yet, where like they're trying to put Diablo on your phone, and everybody's like, "This is a joke, right?" Because that's gonna suck. And they're like, "No, you got mobile phones," and like we talked about last week, like I just don't have any.
Yeah, no,
like,
gotcha.
I'm sorry, Blizzard. I'm not playing your CCG on the bus. I sure as hell am not playing Diablo on the bus.
Right.
Like, I'll play the crap out of Diablo the hour before I'm supposed to go to work. And in fact, to the point that I might even get to work late occasionally. That happens. But I am never. And in this case, I am going to say never, even though you never say never.
Yep.
I am look into my eyes. I will never play Diablo on a phone while I'm on the bus.
Yep.
Thank you.
No. So for me, on just the idea of their masterpiece, what I do like is some of the games that have come out remastered. If nothing else, there's a lot of older games like Command and Conquer and stuff like that one that got remastered where it would be difficult for people to play that on a modern OS. I mean, let alone just, installing it when it was originally designed for things that do not exist today. You need some work done.
Like I said, I don't want to turn this into a debate. But in my opinion, the very last thing we need is an excuse for dev houses to be even less innovative and creative with the stuff that they're making.
I can see that. For me, is if it's just we redid it. It's prettier graphics. This came out 20 years ago. Here's an opportunity for people to play it again if you want. Cool. I'm okay with those.
Means remove the voodoo card support from Diablo 1 and make it so that I can play it on my on a 1080p or 1440 pixel screen. Like, yes, please let me do that.
When I tried bringing up Warcraft 2 on my modern PC, and it's like, wait, this was at 640 by 480 graphics max, and I'm now playing it on a 4K 56-inch monitor. Well, something doesn't fit right in this box. And wait, there was no windowed mode support? It only supports full screen? Huh. So yeah. With that in mind, like, oh yeah, ugly. Let alone terrible mouse support. And when right click didn't do anything, but just yeah. So I agree. I or at least I appreciate when they make it fit modern things to keep on. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll be curious myself in the last week, so we can get into hearing a little bit more about Factorio and then talking about this Apple Epic Games fight that's happening. For me, I do want to give a shout out to my friends here in Colorado that got me out of the house to do some somewhat socially distanced outdoorsiness that I tried almost not to die doing, where we went tubing yesterday up in Boulder, down Boulder Creek. That was great fun, although it was a little low of water, so there were points where you had to shuffle over rocks and sometimes stand up to get over rocks, but for the most part worked very well. My first time doing so, I had not gone tubing down an actual river kind of through mountain, Rocky Mountain rivers. I'd only ever done it in Nebraska, essentially irrigation trails, and so it was just floats versus this being a little more active. The challenge being, as much fun as it was, we went down 3 times, and by the 3rd time we started going down, the sun had dropped. And for those who haven't been in Colorado, once that glowing orb of fire in the sky gets blocked out by features of the earth, here in the high desert of Colorado, the ambient temperature around you suddenly drops significantly as we require direct access to those solar rays.
Yeah.
And so
the temperature in the evening can drop off pretty quickly.
Especially when you're up in the foothills, essentially, in Boulder County. And so we're up there, and the water that we're rafting on, right, or on, is essentially snow melt from the mountains. And so it comes pre-chilled. And although it's worse earlier in the season when it's fresh snow melt and you're getting mass amounts of it, because then it can be barely warmer than freezing of water anyways. Today, or yesterday we went, it was significantly warmer, but I will tell you, by that last round of me floating through, I forgot how long it had been since I have been teeth chattering cold and watching my whole body shudder and being halfway down the run to where we get out and saying, there's very little I can do to change this experience and make it go any faster. Yikes. And so by the time I got out, I couldn't feel almost any of my body and was shivering most of the rest of the night. And I also realized one of the mistakes, as I tried to almost kill myself, is that when I actively do things in water, and especially in going down this cold water, you forget that you maybe are being active as well. And so while we were enjoying local Colorado beverages, something that we did not take time out for was water. And so come the end of the
some
night,
rookie mistakes, Mr. Wayne.
All of these things tying together at once meant that by the time I laid down to sleep, I believe I was both significantly dehydrated, beat to all get out by navigating all of these things, have taken on probably too much sun because it was shaded and I was wearing sunglasses. And so I wasn't really aware of how much I was saying. I did have sunblock on and such, but still a lot of sun on water, not drinking enough water, drinking, alcohol. All that together meant it was fun. It was great. And I felt like garbage last night. And thank goodness we ended the night with a binge of some pizza at one of the places up there to get some carbs back in my system. And throughout the evening, I managed to wake up multiple times and drink a lot of water that I today feel normal. But I could not have said that last night, middle of the night, I felt like an entirely different experience that I might not have made it out of. So it was fun. But oh man, I brutalized myself. Aside from that.
That sounds like fun, but not necessarily wise. But that's okay.
I've learned something. This is what we
call a learning experience.
I've learned something. Hopefully in the future, I remember all of those lessons learned and avoid such abuse. So we'll see. But it was a good time.
All I'll say is Sunday of the Consumer Electronics Show in the Porn Palace.
Those were some memories, man. That place, I wonder if it still exists. The word of that day
was hurt unit. Todd was a hurt unit.
Man, for people who don't know CES, and I hope it eventually becomes a thing again, I want to go visit it. It is one of Wayne's meccas as a beginning of the year thing, because it is all things technology, and I've come to accept and realize that one of my joys in life is being aware of experiencing and touching and seeing new technology, just the advance that humanity does in technology gives me joy. I am jazzed by it. And so I keep up on a lot of the trends, even if they may never make their way in my life. And so for me, CES was a bit of a mecca for all of that. And wants it back.
Well, yes, indeed. And same with many conferences out there, including academic ones. I think we're all looking forward to that coming back to normal. But I'm glad you had an enjoyable week, Mr. Wayne.
That's been great.
And I actually looked up a quote that you reminded me of. I mentioned I finished watching Avatar: Last Airbender a few weeks ago with Kitten. And Uncle Iroh is one of my favorite characters.
Oh, yeah.
Of all time.
He's amazing.
He's
Wealth
so
of wisdom.
Oh yeah, and a quote from him is good times become good memories, but good times become good memories, but bad times become good lessons.
I sure hope so, because I got a bit of both. And so we'll see how it goes. Beyond that, for people who might have saw, I streamed a little bit during the week, is this last Tuesday, the new, and I've been waiting for, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 came out. And I jumped on the bandwagon that I have been excited for it. That looks lovely, Todd. And I have been enjoying it heavily in the sense that it is. I saw some other comments come out for those who haven't paid attention or aren't into flight sims. All good, but they're describing the engine in many ways as the modern Crisis engine because it will put a hurt on no matter what hardware you have available to try to render.
Nice.
Now, I'm doing well where I have an older 6850, 6-core hyper-threaded Intel PC or processor. I've got 64 gigs RAM, and I've got a 1080 with 8 gigs of memory as a video card. And it defaulted to running at 4K with medium settings. And I was getting like 20 to 30 frames per second, depending on scene, like up in the sky, looking away from things, not by cities and such. I had to reduce it down to 1080p and put it windowed mode, and now I can run it on ultra, but it'll still struggle when I'm near cities because it's popping in all of the dynamic content for buildings and things like that, because essentially it is rendering the world. And so if I'm taking off in a dense city, does it beat down my system? And I cannot wait for newer graphics cards to come out, but it is gorgeous. The flight models are significant. It already has multiplayer built in, although it's not got multiplayer like challenges or things, but you can fly on the same server with other live traffic and have a friend that you're with. A friend of mine that is actually going through pilot school out east took me around her home airport, and then we took off together and we kind of like to see sights, which is really slick. So a lot of those things are already, and it is arguably for me one of the prettiest experiences I've had, but I like flight type games and simulators. And so I'm loving that. And you can see some of the stream I did during the week when I first got that up, if anyone wants to check it out, if you might have missed it. So you might see more of that content coming from me in the future. So that's been pretty much what I've been up to this week, and enjoying it. I think it's time for us to at least give Ken that the next 15 minutes or so before we take a break, because I was also asked by the audience over the time to remember to give us breaks because they like to stand up and take a little bio. Not, even as though we might get excited and keep talking. So I will do that this show. But Ken,
I'll be bad for that.
One of the recent things that has just happened is that Factorio, which we've talked about many times over the years, has hit a bit of a benchmark or in its career. And so I wanted to give you a chance to tell us a little bit about Factorio 1.0.
So it is actually letting me share screen now, if you're able to do it. Can you see what I can see?
I see that you have it shared, and so I just have to do my little on-here wizardry.
That's the Factorio screen, I believe.
Yes.
So as you start talking...
I'm sorry I didn't give you more warning, Wayne. It didn't let me do it before, but now it's letting me do it for some reason.
No worries. What I will do is, as you start talking... I am going to try to add in here that window, and so we'll get into it. So go ahead and start discussing what it is that you are showing us.
Okay, so Factorio 1.0 was released, and this is an upgrade from Factorio 0.1718, which it was before. And basically, the main difference is that everything has been updated with high-res graphics now. So all the objects which were in the game in beta, were technically just there as placeholders, which all looked fine to me, to be honest, have now been replaced with full-on graphics. And there's been technically it wasn't a content upgrade up to 1.0, which is the official now true release. Technically speaking, this was just a graphical and final fixes update. But they held back a little secret, which is, as you can see, the thing I'm running around in just now, the Spidertron. Now, the Spidertron is an end-game vehicle.
That is very different from anything I've seen in the game before.
Yeah. So there's other vehicles that exist in the game already. For example, you can have tanks, you can have cars, you can also mod it like I have to have certain aircraft, like I've got jets, gunships, cargo planes and such. And you also of course have a rocket which can go up into space, but you can't actually board yourself. But in terms of vehicles, the problem with all these things is even if they're faster, generally speaking, they all struggle to get over various terrain, except for the flying things that come with mod. But tanks and cars really struggle with mixed terrain. And the problem is when you're building a factory, and let me just show you how big this one I've been playing with is. It's enormous.
Good grief.
Yeah. It's like an electronic circuit, and then you just keep going back and back and back and back. Yeah. So the problem is if you have a factory that has lots of components, machinery, weaponry, power management, and all this different stuff. It's difficult to drive around that unless you have roads that you've built. But then you have to start making space for stuff like roads. When you're often the only person there, that's irritating. So the Spidertron is the only vehicle that you can walk over anything, except for water to an extent. And I'll explain that more. But for example, here's a little factory for making artillery shells. You can see I'm just walking right through over everything. The spider's legs just walk on all machinery, all transport belts. You can even walk over cliffs. So normally when you walk around like this, you get stuck on cliffs like this. But when you're in the Spidertron, you can just walk right over, and that's great. The other neat thing is, while it can't walk over water directly, unlike the other vehicles, it's not actually impeded by small amounts of water. So I've started building like this. Little land strips that I can just reach over like that, and you'll see it looks great as it stretches over and tries to find a different placement of where to go. It places hesitant legs, then sort of pulls itself across. Another neat thing is you don't need to just have one Spidertron; you can have multiple and control them remotely like this. So remote. So you can have a little pet, and there's mods that have been made already to make them pets, so they automatically follow you. They have their own inventory, so if you click on it, you'll see mine's has got lots of steel in it right now. It's got 4 slots for rockets. So it can shoot a bunch load of rockets from itself. But it's also got a power grid, just like your armor on your character does, which is used for either roboports. So you see all these little robots flying around my screen. I'll zoom into a couple so you can see them. These little guys here. They can fly over everything and tend to deliver goods back and forth or build things. You can actually make your roboport, your Spidertron, a base for these, so they can go up and charge from your spider, which is pretty neat. But you can also attach personal laser ports and other things to the equipment grid as well. So it's a very powerful end game vehicle. It's very expensive to make in the game. But the modding community has been fantastic. As soon as this was released, a ton of interesting mods, including the remote control multiple spiders at once mod, so you can have your little army. That way you can have a portable defense or offense. So instead of just charging in yourself in a vehicle, you could theoretically send in 10 Spidertrons into an enemy base and dismantle it from there, which is pretty cool. And I'll just show you the combat capabilities of this thing quickly. I'll run over to an enemy base. So you'll see this is the edge of my base here. You can tell by all the lasers and such there, and the millions of corpses of alien biters that have tried to invade. I've also got artillery shells, which is partly why they're invading so much. I've been shelling them from afar, so they get mad for some reason and invade, almost as they don't like being destroyed. Okay, let me run in here. So by default, you'll see they start chasing me around. If I just stand still, I do get damaged very slowly. They don't do too much damage, but thankfully they can't walk over water, right? So I can easily sort of just evade them by walking around. I've got some personal lasers on my character that's destroying stuff, but here are the rockets. These are pretty nice. So you can fire 4 at a time. it flicks between them and does quite a lot of AoE damage. So I can just run around, destroy their base while they're chasing me around, and they're too slow to actually catch me. I can also step over cliffs, which impede them as well. So it's a very good offensive ability. The thing that I enjoy most about Spirotron is just the ability to get around. I can just travel much more easily than in any other mechanism without mods. So I'm very pleased with Factorio 1.0. Most of the things that they added are, like I said, they're not actually huge upgrades. It's mostly just graphical and the addition of the Spirotron. But the biggest thing is that Factorio has been out for what, 5-6 years in terms of in beta.
Okay.
And Woob Software, every single Friday without fail, have been doing Factorio Fridays, which is how they're basically their blog that they do to say, this is what we've done this past week, this is what we're going to do the next week, these are the phases that we're working on, and so on and so forth. And they have done a fantastic job of keeping the community updated perfectly. I think they're a great example of a company who hasn't really done anything else, was funded largely because of a single game in beta being successful through crowdfunding and such, and actually producing a fantastic final product. The last thing I want to show while I've got the screen share here is if you go to the God, if I remember how to use the Steam interface, if you go to the Factorio's main store page, you'll see that the ratings for Factorio are incredible. It is, in fact, I believe, the second highest rated game on Steam ever, with overwhelmingly positive, with 6,000 to 8,000 votes. It's just one of the best games I've ever played. The community around it is fantastic. The modding community is great. The support for the modding community from the company Woob themselves is fantastic. I've been creating mods for it as well, and it's been very easy to learn. It's also been just so much fun for everybody who has a vaguely logical. Everybody has a logical part of their mind, but anybody who gets off on optimization, this is like cocaine. It is so damn satisfying. I can't really explain it. But I think the people I've seen who enjoy this most tend to be programmers. So if you tend to enjoy the logical steps, the operational operations behind a base and making it all work fluidly, this is for you. This is ridiculously beautiful and fun. And by the way, half the stuff in this base I have been very lazy with and using blueprints, stuff that other people have created. And I'm learning from them because there's a lot to learn in Factorio as well. Even when you've completed the game, you've still barely scratched the surface. So that's a quick overview of 1.0. Do either of you have any questions about what's been going on with it, or Factorio questions in general?
I know I do.
I do not.
One of the questions I'd had was specifically about you had mentioned that the primary things they had updated in Factorio were the a bit of graphics. I saw some things kind of listing some of the base graphic things that are in there, as well as some of the, let's see, so basic graphics and, like you said, the spider bot. But did they do anything in addition to it to kind of support the learning for new people coming in and stuff like that? Like,
yeah, so they actually modified the initial tutorial and startup missions. So they have updated graphics and they're easier to understand and such now as well. But that was one of their main things for 1.0's release, was they wanted to make it more accessible for a new player. So yeah, they definitely have worked on that.
Okay, because that's a big deal to kind of come into, you know. I found there's a lot of things I've played and such that I've messed with where actually, you know, them taking the time to really improve kind of the user experience and first coming in makes a big deal. I saw the same thing happen with Terraria, especially when it went basically towards 1.0, and some of these other ones that are kind of these kind of creative games that allow you to really expand and do what you want with them, that having some kind of better, more concise user experience is pretty massive. Because for, like you said, it being a 5-year-old game that's been out and a lot of people have been playing for quite some time, because it's going 1.0, a lot of people might look at this as their first time. And I know I get turned off from games that rely on external things for you to learn how to play the game in the first place. I feel like if you can't do good development and such that it's built in to my user experience, I just load up the game and play through tutorial, play through missions that are so well designed that they themselves lead you towards understanding and learning, things like that. If it doesn't do those things, it kind of pisses me off. Like, I feel like that's part of good game design, is also understanding how an audience is going to take upon learning what it is you want in the game and how to play it. So that's why I was curious to see if they've done anything with that user experience, and that's good to hear that they have. And so I'm also sharing for people right now on the stream the latest trailer that came out for Factorio, the 2020 trailer that came out just actually just on the 14th. So just this last week, essentially, for how expansive and big and experienced Factorio is. I know I've enjoyed it, and I know I haven't touched it nearly as much as like you or Hando have. So, no.
Yeah, Factorio is incredibly popular, and it's a weird thing because it's a game you don't hear much about. I think because it's not COD and because it's not from a AAA company, you don't see much about it. But when 1.0 was released, it hit Steam's front page. I mean, Steam recognized how many sales it's brought in, how much revenue it must have brought Valve, right? It must be an insane amount. So I think if you look at the actual, I think this is one of those games that you don't look at what's being produced by corporations for the quality. You look at what's being said by the consumer base. And all the gamers are saying that this game is amazing and that they love it, and that's what you should base buying your games upon, not how many ads there are for it. I've never once seen an ad for Factorio.
I don't think I have
it's probably
either.
one of my top 3 games of all time.
Nice. Well, thank you for the update. And if people would like to see, I know that's one of those things Ken would always be happy to share and stream and talk more about. So if you want to learn more about Factorio, please email us in at VtWShowX@gmail.com and let us know your thoughts on it, because it's exciting that's just hit. Another one that hit my radar, although I have not spent much time in, but I know a bunch of my family has, that just hit 1.0, is Risk of Rain 2. That's a game that's been out for a little bit, and they saw almost the exact same week as Factorio hit. It hit its 1.0, and I've been kind of curious to go back and check it out myself, because that's not one I've dove into, but I know a lot of people who play the heck out of. So I'm kind of curious to find more. But no, awesome.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Yep. So what I want to do, actually a quick problematic thing. This is for you, Hando, pretty much specifically. But if you will notice in the lower corner, this way on the stream, and Octail's lower third, we have added a tag for him. And so you will be able to see there the ShowX Octail, which for those who don't recognize the symbol next to it, as we usually rely on your recognition, that is for the Facebook gaming channels that you can check out. So if you go on to Facebook and search for ShowX Octail, you will be able to find his gaming channel and likely be able to observe some of those great historic recreations that he plays through in Europa Universalis 4 that he keeps talking about. And so check that out if you weren't aware of what that oddly looking G means. That is for the Facebook gaming channels that are out there, in lieu of the death of Mixer that happened in the past. And so,
sad about it.
Right. So anyhow, with that though, we're going to take a break. This is your note for taking your bio, grabbing your snacks, doing whatever you need to for a few minutes, or sticking around and listening to the sweet, sultry sounds of OC remixes. In this case, Sub-Zero, a rendition from a Metroid Prime song from Ergo Sonic. And so we're going to be playing that one during the break. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. And so with that, you are watching ShowX on the VtWShowX Twitch channel, as well as if you do Facebook and YouTube. But come join us in the chat, email us in the show, let us know what you think, and we'll be back after this, guys. So see you in about 5.
listening to ShowX on VtWProductions.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the show. So hopefully you've now been re-energized or more comfortably disposed now that you are back from our break and ready to go on. And hopefully ready to strap down and get into it a little bit with a discussion today about what is going on between Apple and the game Fortnite. So
and Google, man, and Google, they're involved too.
But that's how it started, right? That's the nexus of what the headlines were kicking off in the last week. And it's something that, it may not be something that everyone here is invested in, but maybe you should be aware. And so, I don't know.
Yeah, this is something big in gaming in general that happens to include a big player of a game that you might not enjoy, but it's still a big player, right?
So with this, I don't know if either of you have it set up to maybe give some of the background on this. If not, I'll jump on it. But what do you guys know?
You're welcome to, sir.
All right.
I have a lot of opinions on it. So
okay.
If you want to give the background, I can certainly fill in the next part.
So, and somewhat referencing off of an NBC News article that came through talking about this battle. If you need to have any idea of how big this is, this goes beyond gaming circles into general news. I found articles on Forbes. I found articles all across talking about what's going on in this battle. But essentially, what has happened, and let's see if I can get to the beginning of it. The company started out with Epic Games doing an update to their game Fortnite. In basically all of its forms, but basically affecting the mobile version. And what this did is they added the ability for you to purchase in-item things directly from Epic versus, and this is the key piece from both Apple and the Google Play Store, using their built-in monetary systems, which allow those companies to pull, in the case of Apple, famously 30% of any money being spent through the Apple Pay into any apps goes to Apple. And so out of any sale, any money that you put into any app in the Apple Store, 30% of that goes directly to Apple. The rest of the 70% gets distributed back to the company. And that's how they therefore make a significant amount of the money that Apple makes. I think I looked at the numbers. They said somewhere in the range, was that just one app? I think Fortnite specifically generated somewhere around $42 million last year on iOS. And thus of that, like 30% of that, a good over $15-ish million went directly to Apple for them hosting it there and using the service. But that's a big part of that monetary thing that Apple does for distributing of software. So when
I think it makes sense for some of it, but man, that amount.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that. So you say that. One of the things that with that change in Fortnite basically was there specifically to circumvent the pay store mechanism of Apple getting paid, and thus taking that 30% chunk and reducing it and putting it all back into Epic's hands. And what they did to make it seem better for their audience is they at the same time reduce prices in game using that mechanism by 20%. And so in essence, to us as consumers or anyone who would be buying anything in the game, you saw a 20% discount over what you were normally ready to pay. So what it meant for Epic is an additional 10% of direct profits going into their pocket through the iOS store by making it so that you could pay Epic directly and not have to buy any of the purchases in the app itself. So, of course, Apple took notice of this. That is something that in suddenly seeing that 30%, if we use that number of $15 million going to zero in potentially the next year, Apple stood up and said, no, it is in Apple's terms of service for that anyone who creates an app that is distributed on the Apple Store, that the App Store use the Apple Pay system and is subject then to that 30% rule. And so it is in the terms of service, anyone who agrees to distribute things via an iOS platform is agreeing to use that mechanism and thus agreeing to paying 30% of your proceeds to Apple. And so Apple very quickly responded by removing Fortnite from the actual App Store. You cannot go and get Fortnite today. In addition, because there's bigger implications of how this works across the distribution of all software, Apple went a step further and they revoked or threatened to revoke Unreal, the company behind Epic, or Epic Games, right? The whole thing, their license to build and use dev tools on the iOS environment, which reaches out further to essentially affect any game that uses the Unreal Engine from being distributed, built, or doing anything with the Apple Store. So that is kind of
enormous, right? That's a huge number of stuff.
You start seeing the legs kind of grow out from what this means. Todd, did you have something to comment on that piece so far?
No.
Okay.
No.
So that's the initial stage of what's happened. Now, in response to this, and I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, so you're welcome to see it on stream. This is a quick thing. So it's argued that, Epic did this with full knowledge of what Apple's reaction would be. And this was informed by, or kind of made more obvious by, the fact that once Apple took away the Fortnite app from iOS users, like, you can still play the game if you have it, but it means no more updates, no more anything else with the game through the store until this gets figured out. And I don't know how many iOS users there are of Fortnite, so I don't know what number of people that it hits.
I think it was at least tens of millions per for iOS and tens of millions for Android.
Okay, so it is a significant number of people. But once it got pulled, Epic Games released both a lawsuit against Apple that is an anti-monopoly, what's the other piece of it? Lawsuit, basically saying it is anti-competition. So an anti-competitive lawsuit against Apple saying their store is not competitive and that their practices are monopolistic. As well as they released this video, interestingly timed, that again, I don't know if you guys have seen. But playing it in the background here so you guys can on the show see. If you hadn't, the audio doesn't really matter. But essentially you have this image of an apple on screen and this whole dystopian thing that, if people maybe remember or see the framing of it, looks awfully familiar to an ad that Apple ran back in 1984 when they released the original Mac, as a way to say this was a way to go against the Orwellian, if you will, kind of world where IBM users at the time, Intel-based processing users and stuff, were very specifically, it was saying that, like, your information stuff was kind of, you were stuck by these big companies owning everything, and that their Mac was going to change things. So Epic released this saying that, hey, we want to help free developers from this monopolistic way that Apple is running things. And so obviously the fact that this video existed and was ready to be slapped and put out there almost the instant in response to the app being pulled says that Epic had an idea what they were doing and what they were getting into. And in that piece, if you didn't see it, guys, said Epic Games is...
Imagine that, Tim Sweeney with a premeditated BM? No, that has never happened.
Yeah, so Epic Games on that last blurb on the video says, has defied the App Store monopoly. In retaliation, Apple is blocking Fortnite from 1 billion devices. Join the fight to stop 2020 from becoming 1984. And the hashtag free Fortnite. So that's what they put out there. Again, an obvious, they knew this was going to happen. All right, so that hopefully is framing this. Now, on the side, there's a piece that, like Ken keeps bringing up, the Google Play Store also was affected, and Android devices. Now, on that side of it, essentially they're doing the same thing. A lawsuit also exists, but it's not getting the fanfare. And there's some discussion and points, and I've listened to a lot of analysis about it as to why that may be. But the effect is that Fortnite also is not available via the Google Play Store right now. However, you have always been able, since actually before it was available on iOS when Fortnite first came out, been able to sideload Fortnite onto Android devices directly from Epic Games, not using the Google Play Store. They eventually added it to the Play Store because, go figure, that's where the majority of Android users get their applications, get their games and things like that. It's just the easy built-in, and Google does do a thing with the Android software where you kind of can't release Android software without the Google Play Store and their tools built into it, embedded. There's only maybe a couple companies out there who have, but that's because they have such a massive building. They were able to reskin the entire experience and build their own app store. And so it would take a significant effort for someone to not use the Google Play architecture. All right, so that's the framework. That is what is happening. And currently, it is still going on, and it, from all intent and purposes, from what it seems like, it's only escalating, and is not being resolved anytime soon. In doing so, Epic responded to Apple threatening the dev tool piece and asked for a judge to do an injunction to essentially say you can't turn off our tools and shut off all Unreal because you're affecting all these other developers, not just Epic as a company, and saying it is too much of a impact for what Apple's doing. And so it'll be interesting to see as it continues on, because I haven't seen any actual legal fallout from that yet. That's just what's happening. So hopefully
imagine you're just a random game dev company and you're making your little game, and you've got like maybe 3 friends, and you're working together for the past year making this little game together, and suddenly you find that you're not allowed to use Epic, you're not allowed to use the tools anymore because for some reason it's been pulled because some big shot company. Like how is that a thing that somebody else can change what tools you can use? I think that's such a strange move by them.
Well, so you're speaking to some of this level of what are the extenuating impacts, right? How is this going to interact and reach into the general gaming community? So a question out there might be, before we look at the full impacts, why did Epic do this? And so I say,
because Tim Sweeney is a giant baby. That's why they did this.
Well, maybe money.
He
right?
he has the emotional maturity of a toddler. Done. He's a small child, mentally and emotionally. And
so,
like,
how do you know this guy? What's he known for?
Well, his store face sucks. And he's whining and sniveling about the commission that Apple takes off of every app purchase or in-app purchase, and then was dictating what everybody should do, which was this whole 3% number. Except the Epic Store takes 10.
I think officially it's like 12% on Epic, but yeah.
Is it 12? Okay.
I think. I was looking at it.
He was whining and sniveling about it on Twitter. Like, I caught side swipes of that. I'm not on Twitter. Thank God. But he was taking side swipes about the highest commission that anybody should take for any payment any place is 3%, and he's taking some integer multiple more than that. Like, if you needed proof that the tech economy is a bubble economy made up of bubble economies, like, this is it. This is a giant bunch of rich people whining and sniveling about the practices that an even larger, even richer bunch of people are doing with their storefront. That's it. This is crying. This is people crying. I don't know. I'm supposed to be outraged, I guess. Except, Tim, your storefront sucks. And your one trick on your storefront, which is Fortnite, isn't that good. It's popular, but 50% of everybody is dumber than average. So, like, popularity doesn't mean much.
Okay. So
get a second trick. Like, I'll accept 2. You have 1, I'll accept 2. So get a second trick, make your storefront not suck. I need 2. So get a second trick, 1. Number 2, make your storefront not suck. And then maybe you'd have some sort of credible founding upon which that you could whine and snivel about how much money you're giving to Apple or not giving to Apple, or taking from other app developers or game developers, or not giving to game developers.
So there's obviously a huge level of hypocrisy, and I wasn't aware of the Epic Store. But that makes sense. Of course, they're going to have to take a cut, and that makes sense. But I'm not surprised at the hypocrisy. I mean, in the end, you said it's because he's a big sniveling baby. That's probably true, but like, I think the real purpose here is money, right? Like, they want to make a much larger. Okay, if they're losing 30% of their total income and they could manage to get it down to 3, that would be how many millions of dollars per year? And if they did
Yes.
that on both Android and iOS, that would be
Yes.
insane. They're getting free news time from all this. And
Yes.
they're trying
So-
to sell it as them being the good guys.
Okay,
So,
so
more sales.
here's a few levels
Yes.
of some of the things I've seen
And
about
there's
it.
Nothing of the amount of money that they're bilking out of stupid people.
So-
I hate to be the bearer of that news, but if you buy a skin for a video game that doesn't change the mechanics at all, I question very, very much. And I'm sorry, Wayne, because I know you buy League of Legends skins, or used to buy League of Legends.
Well, no,
skins.
I used to
But-
use the gifting of money that was given around, as I didn't buy my own card money, but like people gifted
So if
it
you
for
pay
Christmas stuff.
$0 for your skins, that I can
Yeah.
get away with saying this,
Well,
and I'm not
and
going
I-
to insult
and I
anybody.
I earned a
If you
bunch
buy skins
through.
for video games, you're really dumb. Really,
I-
really, really.
Well, I disagree with that because not only have I bought many skins over the years, but
Sorry, Doctor.
for example,
Oh.
League of Legends is a good example of a game that I thoroughly enjoy. But yeah, the mechanics haven't changed much. The only mechanics that really change is new mechanics from new champions, and then you can argue back and forth how much content that is quite easily. But I enjoy League of Legends, and I think you're paying for the server time and the latency and the platform, and it's a free game. So I think it's almost like a donation as a thank you for all of the amount of joy that I've gotten thousands of hours of joy from League of Legends.
Again, to each their own. Your mileage must vary, and I'm not really trying
Well,
to insult you.
yeah, no. So-
specifically, Ken,
yeah.
but
I understand that.
On that piece, I mean, hey,
disposable any way you want to. Like, that's
Yes.
the overriding principle here. I'm still gonna judge you if you're spending money on Fortnite
Hey.
skins. I'm
Hey.
sorry.
yeah, no, some people like to support the things they love and like to find other reasons to show off things they love. And for some people, that is investing in skins. I personally don't mind that as being a monetary means of free to play games existing, because it means I can choose to not buy a single skin and thus pay no money to play that full game as well. And so I don't mind
Yeah.
that existing if that's how companies get paid, because it means I get to benefit from the like, hey, you guys buy as many skins as you want. I get the gameplay for free.
And let's
I'm
be
okay
fair,
with that.
Like,
But-
who's actually buying skins
So-
in Fortnite?
But okay, all
is
of this
it really
though,
the 45-year-old dude, or is it more likely his kid?
dude,
right?
you say that, Ken, the people who are older who play as well still spend money on it. It's let alone the like we talk about
They don't. I'm
the
just saying more
whales and things
more
like that.
frequently.
But regardless of that means, I think we're all talking about a key element to this issue, which is money. And Ken, you brought it up first. Like, money is a driving factor. So regardless of the how it's being played, arguably, essentially, Epic as a company has its own game store and front that, while, as Todd said, is not ideal and he thinks is bad, it is a place where them, like many other developers, and we can argue many other distribution types of things out there in the world, looking at you, network television to all the various a la carte methods out there to consume media today, which are turning into all their own damn stores and all of their own damn streaming services that I don't want to pay for, versus getting away from the one true house that everyone kind of enjoyed. We're seeing this fracturing continue now into the gaming industry, much like the people running away from Netflix and media. We're seeing that with these, where you can now go, and we've talked about for years, on my desktop over here, I've got the Oculus Store, the Origin Store, I've got GOG Galaxy, I've got Battle.net, I've got Uplay, and I've got Epic Games, all the shortcuts over there, depending on which damn game I may want to play. But in every instance, the reason they did that is for anyone who is one, especially a developer themselves or provide games, to take away from the distribution costs of going through a third party or an extra step to get their game in front of people, means more percentage of income they themselves get to take. Now, back to you, Ken, when you said, but wait, 30% seems like an egregious amount. Apparently, and in the analysis of where we have changed from physical media distribution through buying the boxes of games I have on my shelf and the physical discs, and what it meant to pay as a developer or company to put your disc in a box on a shelf at everybody's local hometown, local EB Games or GameStop or somewhere to buy that game, arguably cost the developer 70% of the price they stuck on the label. And so when you were buying games for $40 back in the day, you're basically giving $30 of that to middlemen and 10% to the actual developer.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to argue that.
No,
I
Ken.
don't think it can be argued that's okay.
Ken,
Then.
no, that wasn't wrong. That was the cost of doing business. How else are you going to get a disc packaged into a box in a pretty container and in front of someone who lives thousands of miles away in Bohunk, wherever, than paying other people to get it there. It's just part of business. Every good you buy has some element of that because it costs money
Of course.
to put physical things in your hand. Now, digital
The middlemen
has
love to take
changed
a
it.
huge cut because they know they can, right? And that's,
Well,
that's
I
the
say
thing I'm discussing.
70%. 70% was across the board because it's X percent for physically building the product, to make a box, to do the disc, that kind of it. There was shipping costs. There was to get a company to put it on their shelf and the cost of doing that and all those various steps along the way. It's just that was in general the overall chunk, not going directly to the people who made the game. Now, arguably, with digital distribution and specifically in Apple's case, that 30% they charge, you could say is a ridiculous discount compared to what a traditional on-the-shelf distribution was. But here's the thing, right?
Well, yeah, comparatively
that's
it's
how,
less, but that doesn't mean it's a discount. I mean, you're getting a lot less stuff for a pretty close to the similar price.
you are still getting your product out to consumers at a price that is still being equivalent to what you were selling it, but you're now getting 40, you're now getting 70% of the profits and only giving up 30 versus it being the other direction when it was to shelf distribution. So you could see a point where as a digital distributor, you're saying, but look at how much of a good deal you are getting for us helping you get this product out there and selling it. Now you can make the case, Ken, like you're saying to a degree, should that number be less? And that, yeah, you can argue what that number should be. But in effect, compared to traditional old on-shelf distribution, it's significantly less. And so that's part of this overall discussion about why the money part of it is an issue. Because much like Todd said, if there's a way for Epic to get you to just pay them direct, even if from other distributors, right, they're doing a better deal now, 12% per se, that's still more money in the hands of developers than what they're currently getting going through Apple.
No, it's not. You say developers, but that makes me think of the actual job title developers because they're not getting anything.
The development house, the people that have created that game, you can argue, Ken, that every step of producing any item we consume, pieces of that money that gets sold to the retailer go places, and how much goes to whatever changes. And you go down to the artist who draws something on the box art of something you enjoy, right? They only make so much. But regardless, the overall package that gets past the distribution piece is larger when you have a lower cut, like 12% versus 30%.
It would not be very hard to construct a scenario in which at a 30% commission, a dev house may not be able to continue to make the game that they were planning on making, whereas at a 12% commission, that they might be able to make a run of a more niche title.
Absolutely.
Right? And so it's not really about getting more money necessarily into the hands of the developers, though, Ken, your point is well made. I think we're much more talking about the small to mid-sized developer continuing to be able to make games.
I agree with this.
And I'm going to argue against my own point that I make very frequently, which is to say I hate this environment in which we have 1 billion games every year, 99% of which are crap. That I'd much rather there be 100,000 games of which 90% are crap, because it's far more likely to me to pick a good one. But then at the same time, I have to understand the fact that in my scenario, no niche games get made. So, same sort of logic with this commission thing. At a 12% commission, it's very likely that a small developer that making niche games will be able to continue to make games for a longer period of time.
So absolutely, this actually links in very well into something that's evolution. In evolution, right? There's a level of mutation, right? Whenever you have DNA in cells that divide, there's a level of mutation, there's a level of crossover, right? So if you have two parents who breed, be they plants, animals, humans, whatever, there's a percentage of each that like randomly is given from the father, randomly is given from the mother, and also there's a little bit of mutation on top. Now that percentage of mutation, like if you run simulations of this, you can change to wherever you want, right? You can say like, yeah, make it 100%. Let's go crazy. Let's see what happens. And you'll find that, when it's 100% mutation, almost everything dies, right? Because it makes terrible offspring. Now, when you make a very small level of mutation, a lot of the mutated things will die as well. Just like in real life, if you have a very small mutation in your genes, unlike your parents, it might give you some, some disease. It might give you some, I don't know, immunity or lack of immunity to something. You might find out that you're allergic to more stuff, right? Generally speaking, mutations bring weakness. And my point is, this is a metaphor for real life as well with companies. I think you find that if you have 10,000 game companies, each producing 10,000 games, some of which are blockbuster AAA titles that are terrible, which we see, right? That happens. And then you also have indie developers, which is one guy in his garage, which is also terrible and it's poorly made and it crashes constantly and it's a terrible, uninspired piece of garbage. That's pretty frequent too. And I would say that the majority of games, both high level and low level, in terms of how much money is put into them, they're generally speaking bad. But you need the variety and you need the high quantity of output in order to find the cream at the top, right? I think that's required for us to refine the process and find what we like. Of course, there's an element of how much advertisement these games get. There's an element of how good are their publishers, and lots of complex factors behind it. But generally speaking, I think that we do need lots of developers to produce good games. How many games have come out there indie that shouldn't have been good? For example, Factorio, right? A game about literally just trains and making a factory. Why would people enjoy playing that as a video game? Like that shouldn't be a thing. And yet it's extremely popular, even though it didn't have a big publisher, even though so on, right? And I think that's the good thing, as I've said, about having a huge quantity of games being made, is that sometimes the good ones reach the top.
Yeah. So to your point, Ken, I'll throw this up back in front of the camera. Like, I like bad games too. So, which
That
is
is indeed a bad game.
Like, I fell into the Fallout trap. Like, oh, it's gonna be Fallout, and it's gonna be in West Virginia. This will be great. And I
Yeah.
certainly got my money's worth out of it, even though I paid full price for it. But it's like you can't. At some point, the business practices of Bethesda, you can't like apologize for them anymore. So,
we
but
unfortunately
I have
all.
to say, as a total aside, I love these books. I have the book for Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, and Skyrim, and
Oh, really? Good.
the collector's edition game guides for all of these, and they're really high quality books. They all come with maps in them, and I just love it.
Oh no, I've always
Oh,
loved the
that's
additional
interesting.
side things that Bethesda has put out there. I thought those are always wonderful. Like even to the point of when I used to get some of their collector's edition stuff back in the day, before they kind of advertised ahead of the horse, or the cart in front of the horse, and then it didn't quite turn out with some of their later ones. I still have my somewhere up here my Oblivion metal coin that came in the package I bought. That I
Nice. That's
Right.
cool.
Things like
Nice.
that. So I fall into those too. But we talk about all these developers and things out there, and I thank you, Babs, for throwing this out as well. There is another wrinkle in the thing that's kind of informing some of why there are these arguments coming out, and that is Apple has made exceptions to the rule about their 30%. And they've done that specifically with companies like Netflix, with Amazon, and some of these other large distribution services, because essentially they were big enough companies to demand their own special cases and considerations and potentially reduce how much they had to pay. And looking at the article, this is from TechCrunch back in 2018 that Babs shared. It says Netflix stops paying the Apple tax on its $853 million in annual iOS revenue. And in doing so, they basically said, Apple was taking about $256 million from that each year from Netflix to have it on their store. And let's see, before the change, Netflix on iOS was grossing an average of 2.4 million per day, meaning Apple was getting about 700,000. And basically they changed the cut, lowered it by half to 15%. And
so what are the mechanics on that? Like, does it, I know you just got the article, but so if I downloaded Netflix on my iDevice and I signed up for a Netflix subscription through the iDevice, Apple would take the 30% cut
Yes.
because I
so
used the website to sign up for the
it's where you do the payment. And so if you were to have subscribed via the app, therefore pay through it, they would get the payment. Versus
Then why have I never seen any advertisements that are like, sign up on our website for a month free, sign up on Apple device to get nothing.
Well, it's probably part of the whole, again, agreements in there saying you're not supposed to air that dirty laundry.
Yeah.
That depends.
Don't tell the consumer they're getting a bad deal,
right?
By using your distribution service.
One of the personal places I ran into this was Crunchyroll. I use the Crunchyroll app on my phone, and that's where I did, and at one point I got mixed between the two, and which was easier to do. Sign up for it via their website at a certain deal, spending, I want to say it was like $7.99 a month or something, or it might have been a little less, $6.99 or something a month for Crunchyroll. And then I had signed up in some, because I got mixed up with something when I added the app and maybe didn't set my account right, via the the Apple app, because I have an iOS device, and it cost me basically an extra $1 a month to sign up via Apple. And I was like, wait, but it's the same subscription. I don't understand what happened. And it turns around that, the same subscription. That's the thing, right? Crunchyroll said, well, yeah, you can still sign up via Apple and use the app, but because we get charged more, we're going to charge you more over the top. So you take some of that cut back onto your pocket that Apple requires for you to use their app. And I was like, whoa.
I think it's BS. I think it makes, like, if you're paying for Steam, right? Say we had Steam takes a cut, and that kind of makes sense because when I'm playing CS:GO or something, or Dota, whose servers am I playing on? Probably Steam servers, right? That I'm using their friends list service as well. So it makes sense because I'm kind of using their platform repeatedly, and I'm actually using their resources. My phone has already been paid for. I paid for my phone. I'm not using your server other than to download the app initially. Why do you get such a big cut off of all this stuff? That doesn't make sense to me.
So that is part of the overall discussion and fight that's happening.
It says access to billions of potential customers.
And that's part of where that question legally comes into, is Apple's platform monopolistic? Is it anti-competitive or not? And I watched some legal analysis of it. Some people who are lawyers talk about it to some degree, and there's some question there. Because essentially for that to take place and be true, the argument has to be made that the Apple environment, the ecosystem of Apple is so big that it in itself as an existence is a monopoly. And therefore, well, you say that, but you can, this is where the argument happens, go buy an Android phone and not use Apple iOS at all, and therefore not use the Apple Store at all in a cellular phone market. They are not the only cellular developer out there, only people making phones, the only people making access to a cellular network. So is it truly a monopoly? Now, I'm saying that's like the legal threshold they have to get past for it to actually take hold. Not to say it won't happen, and you can argue that they have billions of users, and therefore whatever percentages come out there, is it a massive part of the market? Yes. Is that massive big enough to maybe be considered by itself a monopoly? Perhaps, but that's going to be up to judges to determine. Because on the surface, that's at least part of the legal threshold.
I kind of hate this as well because we've seen what happens with the Senate, right? When Zuckerberg and the rest go up there and try to explain basic things about how, the most basic policies they're explained when you sign up and everybody sees.
You mean the fact Congress. That, yes, Congress doesn't understand technology? Well, thankfully, judges are a little lower and get
judges. Not all,
because depending on the court it goes to, you might have judges who are a little more aware. Because courses about copyright and things like that happen all the time and are constant and current. And so those interpretations are hopefully with judges who are still aware because they see cases like this all the time.
So if you plead poverty in front of an activist judge, you could get a different decision than you would in front of. Yeah,
sure.
This is why another American government and politics lesson. This is why every civil rights suit for the past 60 years has gone to the Ninth Circuit.
It is known that
they are activists masquerading as judges instead of judges. And so you know how they're going to rule in advance, which is why all this stuff ends up in the Ninth Circuit. when it goes to. So if you're gonna file a civil rights lawsuit, do it in California.
And
Because
so,
when it gets appealed, it'll go to the Ninth Circuit, and they always slant their decisions a certain way.
so there is a
Always.
point historically with certain kinds of cases where you can have some understanding of what might happen. This is somewhat novel.
So the difference being something like Hobby Lobby, I think, went to the 10th Circuit, which is in the South.
So, but
Right. So the
but
Hobby
even
Lobby
then,
decision went the other way than you would have expected it to if the lawsuit had been brought up in California.
yeah,
just
and
as one-
it is a strategy towards how litigation can be done based on where things are filed and what approaches they take with it, right? And so I don't even know where this case, like the lawsuit, was filed that Epic did, but you knew they were ready for it, and we'll see what their goal is. Because here's the other thing: Epic is not suing for damages. What Epic is suing for is this anti-competitive, monopolistic viewpoint to say they need to open up the ability for other distribution services to work on iOS. That is what
You've
their
got a
goal is.
distribution service. Right? They already have a distribution service. I guess it's not on iOS. but
That's the key.
still.
They want to allow, because
That's
right
the
now,
key,
the
yeah.
only distribution service on iOS is the App Store. It is,
Oh no!
you,
and so
they
you
turn off
sign
any
that
others.
deal. You sign that deal with the devil the instant
Oh.
you want access to every person with an iDevice. Like
You do sign that thing. So
I'm-
what they're
I'm
attacking,
sorry, but you have
what
your
they're,
eyes are open going in.
well, they
Like,
are.
you
And
signed
that's,
the app developer.
yep.
The app developer agreement
The
or
agreement.
whatever. So going in.
You're right.
Like
So
Tim
the
just
fact
wants
that,
to cake and eat it too.
yeah, the fact that they got pulled
Like
and all that is actually in Apple's benefit. They followed their own rules. They are against the agreement. So what they're now suing for is saying you can't, that is anti-competitive, and therefore they want Apple's structure to get broken by the courts. They want the courts to come in and say that Apple can't continue doing that. They are too big. They've done too much. They need to now break open that thing. And Babs brings up another one we talked about previously about all of the new ways of distributing games like Stadia and xCloud and stuff like that. They don't exist on iOS because they have external purchasing. Same kind of thing. And so this gets into this next part of the conversation of, we don't know where this is going to go legally, but based on what happens, what is that going to hit? What is it going to affect? Because if Apple and Google lose in some format of this anti-competitive discussion, this leads to potentially something better for consumers, potentially, right? Which is a bigger diversity of distribution mechanisms in stores, which may allow us to get into something we prefer, like having something like perhaps even a store like we have on the PC for gaming, right? Where we could get into and use Steam or something like that on an iOS device or an Android device or something. We could actually have the Steam store there, and for licenses we buy that are capable mobile all the way through, maybe we can have that one license to rule them all and play them on any of those devices with our one thing, right? Only one active at a time. But you could do that.
Sure.
And so there's a potential from a consumer perspective where you almost, at least for me, I kind of want Epic Games to win, because I do see a benefit in breaking open that stranglehold. Because that
I do
stranglehold.
think both Google and Apple have far too much of a stranglehold on mobile devices in general. Back in the day, there was a lot more competition, but they have been destroyed. Even Microsoft got destroyed, right?
Yeah, Babs brought it up
BlackBerry,
about that with
right?
Microsoft. That's some of the things that, and there are people trying to compare this case all the way back to the Ma Bells, right? That when you had, but now that was truly old school monopoly. They controlled the top-down production of everything from communication, from phones to the lines in the ground to the how much it costs. They controlled everything, so they had to get broken up to be anti-monopolistic. This has some gray area, and there's no like solid answer, because the other side is, like you said, Todd, the Epic Gaming Store is not great, and I mean, we see how hard they are trying to pull in, and I'm victim or willful participant, and every time they release a new free game, I grab it. I may never play it, but if you're going to give me a free license on something that I may choose to play later, I'm going to grab it.
I have a library full of free junk,
Yes.
including Borderlands 2.5, which
me
is
too.
also junk. So yeah, I'm doing it too.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I trolled both the Epic Games Summer Sale and the Steam Summer Sale. Like, if you're going to give me stuff for 75% off, I would be stupid to not take it.
Yeah, I don't hold enough to my drudges or whatever to say that, yeah, I hate you, Epic, so I'm going to buy that same game for like 50% more over here.
Yeah.
God,
No,
damn.
it's like his storefront is trash. It's not that bad.
Yeah, exactly, right? There's a
You can
threshold.
still play your games on it, which is kind of number one, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's the idea.
It's
That's
so
the idea. I have to give you this quote from Tim Cook because it makes me laugh.
okay.
So here's the quote. After beginning with 500 apps, today the App Store hosts more than 1.7 million, and only 60 of which are Apple software. Clearly, if Apple is a gatekeeper, what we have done is open the gates wider. We want to get every app we can on the store, not keep them off. All right, Tim.
Thank you for the 30% of all sales that come through our store.
We all know what you're saying really means.
Yeah.
What you're saying really means that instead of paying all of those app developers directly, which you should be doing at Silicon Valley principal software engineer rates, which, if you don't know, is in the mid six figures, you decided to outsource all of that to people that just want to get noticed for scraps from your table. If you have the amount of cash that it's rumored that you have on hand, that's really true. You have more than enough money to give every single app developer that has ever developed an app on your app store a job, a proper health insurance, pensioned, 401k job, right? And you've decided instead, in the false veneer of openness, to outsource all of that development. So it's not like you're an agent either, Tim. Tim Cook. It just happens that the other Tim is 1,000 times worse.
Yep. No, you're completely right, Todd. And can I, since I realize we've only got 10 minutes left, can I just tell you my general opinion of this whole thing?
Yeah, no,
works.
I think that's actually something everybody out there does want to hear is our opinions. We want to hear yours as well. And so I love that people are sharing in the chat, and I want you to continue the discussion on our Reddit. And after the show, email us in what your thoughts are. If you have something strong you'd like to share about the discussion, we definitely want to hear that. But yeah, Ken, I think it's on us each to kind of wrap up what our general thoughts and maybe who we'd want to win this fight as it goes forward, so we can track it when we do hear finality to it.
Oh well, I'm a damn commie, right? Like I don't want there to be a winner. I want them all to lose. I think this is great. For me, it's like, yes, fight amongst yourselves. Please tear each other apart. The problem is these kind of fights don't end like that. They end with a winner, right? Somebody is going to come up better. And that makes me very sad because I don't think Apple, Epic, Google, whoever needs more power or even, what's the phrase? When there's a precedent. They don't need any further precedent for the fact they're not a monopoly when they are, right? That's the thing that depresses me, is that whichever way this goes, it's probably going to hurt the consumer and help big biz.
Amen, Ken.
So I can agree that somebody big business is going to win this long run regardless. I mean, that it is when you have big company A fighting big company B and C, a big company is going to win unless somehow some third party jumps in, or the court decision ends up saying, you're right, you win. However, the conditions for the win is, and everybody gets, their come up and back, and it's actually in consumers' favor. Good luck that ever happening.
Yeah.
You're right. Someone's going to lose. Now, and arguably right now, we all potentially are losing, depending on where you consume. I don't play Fortnite. I don't play Unreal Engine games on my on my device.
Fortnite, though, is it?
Well, I'm saying, so the right now, meaning that as these Unreal tools are unavailable, as Fortnite is unavailable on a mobile device, doesn't affect me. It affects a lot of other people. The results of this will affect all of us in some way. And so because there's been some discussion there that right now the consumer loses while this is happening, and we don't know how the consumer is going to lose in the future. For me personally, like I said, lean towards wanting Epic to win because I would love to see, like, one of the things that pisses me off about having an iOS device, that there's at least a way around on Android, which makes their case against Google harder, is that on Google device or on Android, you can sideload. So there is at least a means you can go in there and use non-store, provided software on their thing. It's why so many developers I know, this even goes to Babs in your old company, have apps that work on an Android device, but not having an app on iOS because of those kind of restrictions. You don't have that option on iOS. The closest you get to is you literally have to root your phone and then use some non-legal stores to sideload software on, and thus going against
your warranty
terms of service and all that on the iOS device, which goes into that stranglehold that Apple has on all their consumers. And yes, arguably you can choose to go to a different device, but there's so much tied into that, right? And so I would love to see some kind of, some crink in the arm or something shot through that allows for better distribution. And even if it's that they have to now reduce their price for other distribution hubs as a whole to 5% income or so, I don't know, something. But then actually allow it, there should be something in there. So I'm hoping that Apple in this case loses, but we'll see. And again, that's not because I love Epic, but I would like to see that break open to the market. Todd, what are your thoughts in general where you see all of this potentially going? And whether you do want to pick a winner or a loser.
The point's already been made. The consumer's going to lose. It's the people who lose in this. I place almost no value on access to Fortnite on a phone. So, but your mileage may vary. I don't know. I guess I could construct a scenario in which I would need to use the Steam app on my phone to buy a game that's on sale because I'm not in a place where I could download it direct or buy it and grab it directly on like a laptop or a PC. Like I can construct that scenario.
So that's actually an interesting one because I've done that on the Steam app.
Yeah.
I'm curious how that works because on the Steam app, I have bought a game because I saw it on sale and before going home, but I didn't put in any details to Apple because Steam has my purchase information saved.
Right,
and
mine too.
So when I did it, it actually went to the Steam, you call it browser interface or whatever it did, and purchased that thing for my Steam account. Now I can't play that on a phone, so there's a bit of a disconnect, but I have absolutely bought things for my home PC via the Steam app.
Yeah.
And I bet you that goes against their terms of service in some way.
Yeah, I can totally construct a scenario with the kind of 2-day business trips that I was taking before COVID. Like I can totally see where that would intersect with a Steam weekend sale or a midweek madness or like the Thanksgiving sale or the
Absolutely.
Summer sale
ones,
or
yeah.
the spring sale. Like something like that, in which I would have 24 hours to buy something very specifically that was on deep discount, and just I don't have the physical box to be able to do it, so I would have to do it over my phone because it's what I have, right? So
Okay.
I understand that. I understand that the 30% number is maybe high, but I don't know.
See that one,
right?
Yeah. I mean, it's arguable, right? Because the discussion.
I don't know if 30% is high. I have no means to value access to every iDevice owner on access to a closed marketplace with every iDevice owner on the planet.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's the problem.
Right.
If you want to put something out for Windows machines, what do you have to pay Microsoft?
I don't know.
Unless you go to the
I don't know
Microsoft store.
You don't have to pay Microsoft. You just put it on a website and people can access it. You provide the access, then people can get to it.
But I mean, Microsoft's got an app store too, right?
Yes.
Sure, and that's understandable.
To the Microsoft App Store, do you have to pay them?
I would expect so. I haven't looked it up. I would expect they have a similar deal. I'm sure it's
So I
minor.
get what you're saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying. To put a .exe file on a server box someplace,
Yep.
and anybody with access to that IP address can go get that .exe and execute it. Right? Totally fair point, and that is free and should be.
But yeah, I mean, all they're really getting paid for,
Feels
right,
like a
is
holdover from DOS, to be honest. But I'm sure
that's
it's
the
not.
challenge.
Anyway.
Yeah, because basically those distribution companies are maintaining the files on there, the network of people to send it, but arguably the cost of doing all of that is minimal. Server space,
And now
connectivity, stuff
and
like
I'm
that.
also thinking about knock-on effects too, right? Because I've been teasing around this idea in my own head that digital advertising is both valueless and worthless. Right, because there's an armada of influence that'll do it for nothing, essentially, right? That'll do all your advertising for you for nothing. So why would you ever pay for digital advertising when you can just have somebody on Twitch do your digital advertising for free?
Because it depends on your
right?
target audience, and if it's a Facebook user who sees the ads blown in their face and in their stream 24 hours a day,
well,
there's still value there.
So that's
but,
if you put together customized or personalized advertising along with the closed store ecosystem, like maybe it kind of clicking to me that maybe there's value there that I didn't see before necessarily, and so I might have to change my mind about digital advertising because I want the advertising industry to go away entirely. Like that's the whole reason I'm subscribing to.
Oh God.
Well, no, I'll tell you what, advertising people. Here's your primer for your future. I'll take a double latte. Well, I mean, because outside of advertising, what skills do they have?
Advertising is not going away anytime.
I know the problem is I don't see it ever going away.
I'm aware, as desperate as I am for it to go away. I realize that it's not the statement made way back about 50% of everybody. I don't know. Like, guys, I don't really care who wins this. I
That's
know
fair.
we're not.
No, it's
So,
fair to not care
Can
because
they blow each other up?
well, like
Yes.
I said, that would be the
Like-
only option I think
like-
that actually helps us as consumers across the board is if somehow a truly arbitrary party comes and rules on it and says you'll win, however conditions, and such that
Yeah.
there's something taken from both sides that allows us as consumers to actually win, but it's not us suing any of them.
It's like when two sports teams that you absolutely meet in the playoffs, and you're like, did the building just implode? And
Yeah.
then just take all the fans with them. Like, and can we just have that happen? Like, you don't actually want it to happen, but like you're kind of rooting for it to happen because I don't like any of these players. I don't like Apple necessarily. Like, I like their gadgets. I don't like the fact that they do region locking. Right?
Oh, region locking needs to die. That's another whole nother.
Right. I mean, why aren't we talking about with all of this sideswiping of antitrust going on, like all over the place? Why aren't we talking about region locking in a digitally connected world?
Absolutely. Well, let alone, as we've discussed from the gaming perspective to all of our friends out there, why can the cost of a game change so significantly depending on where it's being sold? And especially, like, it's one thing.
Makes sense.
It's one thing. No, it's one thing if they're like saying because in China they will otherwise pirate the game or the software, like Microsoft sells Windows for $10 in China, $10 or $30 or whatever in China, because they can't charge $100 because then nobody will buy it. But when I see people in the UK and people in Australia paying more for a game that is digitally distributed than what we play in the United States, that bothers me because I don't feel like our money is so different. In fact, I know their value. Well, I know the Canada and I know the Australian dollars are weaker than ours. So they're paying like a double tax on it. And that the UK tends to be a little bit stronger, but it still doesn't equal out to the amount they charge difference. And so it's like, holy cow, the way that developers get away with that around the world.
Absolutely. So I think today's been quite fun because I think we've generated a lot of interesting discussion as well as some other topics that we found of interest as well. So thank you guys for being such good sports about everything and bringing your points because it was super interesting.
Especially for that 10 minutes where I essentially called everybody dumb.
Your phrasing wasn't the best.
Wait, what? Hey, like I said, there are things all of us in this world enjoy, and there's things we don't, and not everybody enjoys the same.
I have never, and I'm looking into the camera, so you definitely can believe me. I have never said something in an exaggerated tone of voice to try and drive a point home. That was not anything that we ever did on the old show, and it's certainly not anything. It's certainly not anything that I'm doing now on this new show to try
and blanket statements are always correct in every instance. And
that's the black and white world, sir.
Yes,
black and white.
It's all binary.
Says the mathematician.
Right?
Yeah, to the computing scientist. Yeah.
Is there a potential lead up to a joke there? So
I think so.
This setup you get into, what the mathematician says to the computer science nerd. But anyhow,
and the physicist set his waste paper basket on fire and went back to bed, satisfied in the fact that he'd reduced the problem to one that had already been solved.
Nice. All right,
that's
but with that,
line to a mathematician, engineer, and physicist joke.
Yes, very good. With that, it is time for us to wrap things up. Ken, would you do us an honor? And yeah, for everyone out there, thank you for tuning in this week. But Ken, could you get us on our way out?
Absolutely. You've been listening to ShowX Live, most likely on twitch.tv/ShowX, and we very much appreciate that. You can also check us out on facebook.com, search for Show Space X. You'll find us there. You can like us there and see whenever we go live. Throughout the week, we do some gaming stuff on this channel occasionally, and be sure to support us on social media and stuff. That stuff really matters in terms of growth and stuff. You guys retweeting, liking, all those little things help out. Takes you 2 seconds, means the world to us. So please go and do that. It makes us, we're very appreciative of our fans doing that. You can check us out on twitter.com/VtWShowX, twitter.com/DocDead, and twitter.com/DrKenReed for the show, for Mr. Wayne, and for myself. If you also go to Facebook and check out ShowX Octale, you can find Octale's gaming page there. So it's facebook.com/ShowX Octale, and you'll find all the stuff that he produces individually up there on Facebook as well. You can find us on Instagram as VtWShowX, and you can also find us on reddit.com/r/ShowX to continue the show discussion. And also you can email into VtWShowX@gmail.com. And lastly, but also importantly, you can also donate to the show, patreon.com/ShowX for a minimum of $1 per month. That keeps us afloat. And that's how we can get new things like Todd's fancy new webcam. That's how I got my microphone here. That's how Wayne got his lighting set up and all this stuff. So every penny does go towards the show. We don't ever spend it on beer, even though sometimes we wish to. So thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We very much appreciate it. And thank you for joining today, Todd. And thank you for hosting, Mr. Wayne. We appreciate all of you out there.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for tuning.
With an expert lead out.
Say, this is why I turn to Ken each week. All right, buddy, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Time to give you back the rest of your day. Have a good time. I will likely be in the Discord shortly after this in case anyone wants to follow up, as well as because I'm pretty sure I need to play a game or something and do all the show notes. So thank you, everybody, and we will catch you again next week. Look forward in the midweek to hearing what our topic is, seeing our advertising so you know what we will be talking about next week, and you're able to join in the discussion. With that, we're out of here. Todd, I see you ready to salute everyone.
Slide a salute.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, everybody, have a good week, and we will catch you again next time.
Goodbye. See you.
Zombie.